Hey y'all. So I know it's been quite some time since I have posted an update video regarding the progress on my body. But it's coming. It's coming. I wanted to take some time to, through personal experience, share some things with you guys. I didn't want to keep sharing shit from things that I learned from people, others, because everything doesn't work for everybody. Even though I'm posting this video, and this is my opinion based on my experience. Everything does not work for everybody. So I wanted to make sure, based on my experience, that I was sharing what worked for me and what didn't work for me. So in this next video, I'll be talking about all type of shit like maintenance, eating, some of the challenges that I have had, as well as, my workout routine and sleep. Because nobody told me this. But this shit has affected my sleep. I didn't know that. So that video is definitely coming. But today I wanted to, check in with my soft girls, because I know a lot of women are currently in their soft girl era. And so I kind of wanted to do a check-in because I'm in my soft girl era, but I'm kind of struggling. No, if words have power, I'm not struggling. I have had moments where I struggled with this entire, kind of integrating back into that divine feminine energy that I know. Or even having a balance between the two, but more so wanting to be soft, feminine, and gentle, as opposed to, leaning towards that masculine side, right? So let's talk about it. I had to go back and start. I had to unpack my shit. Yeah. I had to realize, I took some time to realize why I tapped into that divine masculine energy in the first place. And for me, and for a lot of women, they say it's the mommy wound. We need to adjust. Specifically, they say for Black women, we need to adjust our mommy wound. And one of the ways that I did that, was through shadow work, meaning all the things that I had been sweeping under the rug for years, all the experiences that I have allowed to haunt me throughout my life, all of the negative mindset that I learned growing up, I had to unpack that shit, and I'm currently unlearning it. So I had to do that shadow work, meaning I had to look all of that shit in the face, and instead of trying to ignore it or using coping skills to pretend that I didn't experience this or trying not to think about that, I faced it head on. Okay? And a part of addressing the mommy wound, I had to acknowledge the fact, for me, I'm an orphan. I know who my family is, but I was not raised by my mother or my father. Okay? And so one of the things that I had to acknowledge was, for me, my mommy wound is a gaping hole, because sometimes, even though I have guardians, don't get me wrong, and I will, talk about them, but I want to be honest. For me, it's a gaping hole, because I have one memory of my mom, and it's so distorted because it happened so long ago. She died when I was 1, that I often feel like I don't belong, or I don't have a sense of where I started. For instance, I don't feel like I fit all the time with my family. And so I wonder at times if these are really my people or did a stork drop my ass off like they used to tell us back in the day. Woo! Because I'm a little different, okay? So, and then another thing I had to, going back to, the topic, another thing that I had to address was, my start. my example, I didn't have an example of a soft, feminine, gentle woman growing up. I was raised by my grandmother and my aunt. And they were born in very different times. You know, my grandma was born in the brown paper bag time. She was a very dark-skinned woman. And if you weren't, y'all know, those of us who's old enough to remember those stories, and you know about history, that if you weren't at least the color of a brown paper bag, you weren't accepted. And so by me being dark-skinned or darker than my sister, because my sister was always beautiful and bright-skinned and long hair, very Sade-esque, she felt like I had to be a certain way in order to be able to survive. So she treated me very differently from how she treated my sister. She taught both of us two different things. And a lot of people often say, we grew up in the same household and we had very different experiences. Some people question how that can happen, but that is a very real thing. While my sister was being taught that she was beautiful, when she brought home bad grades, she was told it was okay. Why? Because she was beautiful. I said it sounded regular. Beautiful. She was beautiful, and so she would have a man that's going to be able to take care of her. Me, I was taught completely different. I was taught that I was ugly, I was fat, and I had to get my education because no man would ever want to be with me. Now, I held on to that not all my life, because I released it a couple of years ago. I had to go through some therapy. I'll be honest, and that's a part of unpacking and doing that shadow work. I had to realize, and give my grandmother grace in a sense of she was raised in a very different time. So she raised me to not knowing or not thinking ahead to the future that I wouldn't experience any of the shit that she experienced when she was a kid, being darker, and being raised in Alabama. This melanin be popping, and they like it in all shades. Okay, even though I'm not dark skinned, I'm not as dark as my grandmother, but she didn't, again, different generation. I'm an older millennial, so I was raised in a time where tradition was still something that they was kind of more so doing, as opposed to they weren't doing the gentle parenting, but they were, kind of, you had some parents that were reformed, but the people that raised me were not. They were very traditional. So I had a very traditional upbringing. I can remember, a part of doing that shadow work, and something else that I definitely have to acknowledge was that, my body developed very early. And when I say early, I started to develop breast in elementary school. I had a body before I was in the 5th grade. And, being raised by my grandmother and my aunt, I love her, but she still had that very traditional mindset. She wasn't as strict as my grandmother was when it came to me, but she still had that traditional mindset. One of the things that I also had to work through was body dysmorphia. Like I was saying, at a very young age, I developed very quickly, and so I was always taught to cover up because they didn't want me to be viewed sexually by a man or by boys, And they also taught us, or me, well, no, they taught us that all men want is one thing. And I always wondered that. That's going to be something I talk about, very soon. Because why are we teaching children or little girls that men only want us for sex? And we're teaching little boys to take care of women and give money, but no one's teaching how to love. But if a man ain't doing certain things, then he doesn't love you. But that's another time, that's another video, but that one coming too. Anyway, working through body dysmorphia, the mindset that I had to cover up and developing that body dysmorphia outlook about myself, I had to realize that I wasn't ugly. You know, I had to realize that my body wasn't something that I needed to cover or be ashamed of, but be more so proud and accept who I am and what I look like. And it's okay because I was one of those little girls. I used to love to play dress up. So and I was very much into Moesha as a kid. What is it? Clueless when I was a little girl. I love the 90s. I love how we were able to just dress back then. And so I wasn't really able to express myself through clothes because, like I said, I was told that I had to cover up because I had developed quite early, like I shared. But I kind of took that with me. I was always ashamed of my physical form. So I never took the time to say, I never took the time in my adolescence or youth, even in my young adult years, to just accept myself. That's something that prior to me having my stomach done, I started to do. I started to embrace Jennifer. I started to love my body. And in loving my body, I realized that there were some things that I needed to improve, you know? And so it's been somewhat of a challenge even now because I'm getting a bit more of attention than I used to get in the past. And so I have to remember that, you know, it's okay for me to wear my heels. It's okay for me to dress a certain way and be confident because that's what fashion technically is all about. We're supposed to dress how we feel on the inside. And sweetie, I feel good every day. So that's really how I want to dress every single day. I like to dress sexy. But that was something that even as a kid, let me go back to that, playing dress up. And if you wore heels, or if you were, from my experience and my upbringing, if you dressed a certain way, you were trying to be grown. And essentially, I wasn't trying to be anything but who I was, a girl. So I really left, you know, my adolescent years going into adulthood really confused about how I was supposed to present and not feeling like I was worthy enough to dress the way that I wanted to dress. One, because I wasn't, at that time, I was overweight. So I wasn't small by any means or stretch of the imagination, but I still felt beautiful, you know, at times. Because it was hard to find clothes. Like within the last recent years, all my girls has been big girls for the majority of their lives. You know, we just started being fashionable within recent years because a lot of those clothes, if you were fat growing up, excuse me, but that's what I was called, and so that was my reality at that time. I'm not shaming, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm not trying to ridicule or anything like that. If that word is a trigger word for you, I do apologize. I'm not trying to trigger you, but the reality is, you know, I was fat. And so I had to, and I'm not skinny now, but definitely not the 200 and 300 pounds that I was back then. And so you couldn't find a lot of things. You had to piece stuff together, or, you know, Lane Bryant came. Before Lane Bryant, it wasn't much that I had an option to wear. And even when I tried to lose weight, I found it very difficult. And that was because of some medical issues that I had that I didn't, you know, that was untreated, but very avoidable. So, you know, like now that I'm older, I realize that now that I'm older and I've developed a positive mindset, I realized that I was holding myself in a certain view based on what my family, the mindset that I developed from my family growing up. And then, of course, you know, I grew up in the 90s. Hell yeah, I was bullied. I was called ugly. I was called fat. All of that did play a part in, why I chose to start covering my body and why I tapped into that masculine energy, because I felt like I had to be hard, in order for me to be respected, when I didn't have to do any of that. I don't have to be aggressive. Look at Felicia Rashad. Mama is soft. She speaks eloquently, and she's kind of like I'm not holding anybody in high regards over myself, but she's somebody that I definitely look to when it comes to how to, her and Debbie, her and her sister, how to be soft, how to be, moving that feminine energy, because that's what they are. That's what both of them are known for, so, and I always admired them, by the way. But anyway, back to what I was saying, I developed a negative view. Even, I was bullied, but it started in my childhood. It started with, like I said, that mommy wound, and that was something that I had to, to address. I had to address that. I had to, and I couldn't keep blaming. I can't continue to blame anybody for my behavior. That shit is all on me. So if I'm being masculine, if I'm being aggressive, and when I say masculine energy, I'm talking about aggression, yelling, screaming, cussing people out, fighting, as opposed to knowing that I don't have to. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a fire sign. By no means or stretch of the imagination am I going to allow people to push me out, I'm going to be a pushover. But I think it's more important for me to choose my battles as opposed to trying to check motherfuckers. Like, that's something I used to say. I'm going to check these motherfuckers before they get me, And instead of doing that, always having to be on guard, I realized that once I stopped tapping into that masculine energy, a lot of the people that I was around were mirrors of me. So all my friends were a reflection of me. But as I started to elevate, I developed, and I've met other types of friends that match my energy. And so we're soft. And so I think it was more so, the growth. I had to grow in that time. And one of the ways that I grew, because I feel like it's a new day for me. I don't want to, like I said, have to check motherfuckers. Now, traffic is still something I'm a work in progress on. This traffic in Atlanta, baby, that's all I'm saying. If you've driven here, or if you were here prior to the pandemic, you know that since the pandemic, this shit has got fucking bananas. And that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, it's gotten bananas. It was already, Atlanta was already known for its traffic, but now, sweetie, yeah, it's different now. Yes. Anyway, going back to my subject, it's a new day for me, so I don't feel like I have to be aggressive. I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to be talking about people or be, nasty, mean, or rude. Any of the things that I was, what Regina Hall calls them, the rage days. I don't want to tap into my rage days anymore. Anybody, I'd rather be peaceful and happy, and at peace with myself, as opposed to loud, aggressive, toxic. That's another thing, that I was very toxic, mean, hateful, all of the above, honey. No longer want to be that. So I had to do some inner work. And if you're wondering how to do shadow work or how to do that inner work, I started with mindfulness. mindfulness changed my mindset when it came to, because I sat down, you sit down and you meditate. If you're not able to meditate, it's a crap ton of videos on YouTube for beginners. There's also guided meditations. I stopped trying to fight the thoughts and accept it so that I could heal. And now I have such unconditional love for myself. The way I love me, babe. I love me. But I had to do that. I had to develop that. And that inner work, and a part of loving me is loving how I look, loving how I present, and being confident and having high self-esteem, and not allowing anything or anybody's perception. I stopped caring about the perception or the mindsets of others, or the perceptions. I stopped giving a fuck about what other people thought about me. That's really what I want to say. I'm trying to be sweet and shit, but that's really not how I am. I'm soft, but at the same time I cuss, so bear with me. I stopped giving a fuck about what other people thought about me, and mainly give a fuck about how I feel about myself. Let me say that again, because I stumbled over my words. I stopped giving a fuck about what others' opinions are when it comes to me, and I only give a fuck about my opinion. Why? Because really that's the only one that matters. How do I feel? That's it. Yeah. So that's part of my, okay. Sorry. So while I sometimes struggle with, or while I sometimes feel like I struggle with being soft, with being feminine, with tapping into this soft girl energy, I'm not going to stop. I love being a woman, and I love being soft. I love wearing my heels. I love what my friends say, oh, you plastic or you being extra. I used to let that shit bother me too. Oh, if I didn't look a certain way, then my friends would kind of judge me, and I kind of pulled back because it made me feel like I was doing too much. But maybe you bitches weren't doing enough. You know what I mean? And that's what I told my friends. Maybe y'all not doing enough. Because I'm not going to stop dressing or being this version of myself, because it took me a long time to accept that it took me a long time to embrace that this is who I really am. I love who I am now. Like I said, that's that unconditional self-love. And I found it through doing that inner work that I was afraid to do, acknowledging some of the traumas, acknowledging some of the shit that I experienced in my childhood and that mommy wound. For some people, it may be a daddy, maybe a father wound. Whatever it is, maybe your dad wanted you to be a little boy, so he made you play sports. So you had to tap into that masculine energy to please your father. Whatever it was. For me, I didn't have an example of what a soft woman was, because my people were forced to be strong, and that's how they raised us. But I don't have to live in that energy no more. That was so long ago. I'm almost 40. I cannot, and have not for years. I want to say that because while doing the shadow work, I was also in therapy. So I was learning how to process, all of the things that I experienced that was trauma for me growing up and in my adulthood. Because you don't just experience trauma as a kid. You experience it as an adult too, depending on life, And so it was so freeing, and I feel so comfortable and cozy in my skin. And so I want to say in closing, my soft girls, hey mommies, continue to be you. If you kind of struggle every now and again, it's okay. Maybe it's time to address whatever, or maybe it's time to just focus on you and not try to compete with others. I don't know. I don't want to make some shit up, but come on, soft girls. There's nothing wrong with being soft and gentle. Hell, to be honest, as a black woman, I'm tired of being viewed as strong as fuck. Why are we the pillars of strength? The fuck? I get tired too. I get overworked too. I get frustrated. I get exhausted. I get to the point where I just need a fucking hug too. I need, why are we as black women the pillars, the poster for strength? Thank you for our forefathers who had to fight and all of that, but I don't want to do that no more. When you think about black women being strong, don't put me in that, cause y'all put black women at, like, we have to be these. Excuse me, that's really good though. We have to be the pillar, like, not the pillar. We have to be viewed as a strong. I don't need help. Don't hold the door for me. I'm out here fighting men. I don't need a man. All of this shit, all of the stereotypes that come with being a strong black woman, leave me out of that. That's not me. No. That's back then in the day, maybe. Yeah. But now, no. Hold my door. Open my car door. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I will encourage your confidence, and I want you to treat me like a woman. Let me get the fuck out of here. I want to just say, to my soft girls, keep being the example for your daughters and for everybody. It's a beautiful thing to acknowledge other women in their soft girl era. I love giving compliments. I love, loving on my on other lights. So keep walking in that soft girl era. It's needed. That feminine energy is needed from us. That soft, gentle, loving energy is needed from us as black women. And I'm not making this about race, because I know it's not specifically about that, but like I said, sometimes there's a stereotype surrounding black women that we are the pillar of strength, of, we don't need a break, we don't get tired, and that is simply not true. So I want to be left out of that. I'll be the one to the side, the other. Black girl, black woman, shit. Yeah, soft girls, keep being soft, because that energy is definitely needed. Bye, y'all.